Welcome to Stories Beyond Borders, the podcast where culture, identity, and personal journeys come together. I'm your host, Urmi, and in each episode we sit down with voices from around the world to talk about what it means to belong, to move, to grow, and to find home. Whether you're a third culture kid, an expat, or someone redefining identity on your terms, these are your stories too. Today, I'm joined by Alexandra, a seasoned management professional turned writer and journalist who brings a truly global perspective to the table. Having spent nearly 20 years as the spouse of a diplomat, she lived across several countries, published 2 books, and uses her voice to advocate for women and children. Whether she's lecturing on intercultural communication or playing a game of tennis, Alexandra lives a life that beautifully blends purpose, culture, and curiosity. I'm so excited to have her today on today's episode. Welcome, Alexandra.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So let's start with the first question, which is, what is your story?
My story is long, so I'm not very young anymore. So I'm originally from Romania, so I'm Romanian. I lived the first years in my country, as we were not allowed to travel much back then. And then when we were finally able to do that, I started going abroad. I was also an exchange student in the US for a while during my high school years. Then I studied management. I did a master in business, and I started working initially in Bucharest. So this is how I started. But then, life takes you from place to place, and you not always expect what's going to be next. So as I married someone who was a career diplomat, I started moving from country to country, following my husband. So we lived in Austria for a couple of years, and in Germany, and now we are in Brussels, in Belgium. So I've lived for the last almost 20 years abroad, on and off, but mostly outside Romania. And I think now I can fully appreciate the advantage that this kind of life brings to you and to your children also, because we have 2 children who are third culture kids because they've been living abroad most of their lives. And I think this defines you in a way that it's not possible for someone who lives in the same place all their life. So it's a completely different story.
Yeah, true. Couldn't agree more. And how was it for you to move around so much and to always keep adjusting? Because you said you lived in Romania and then you went to all the different places. So I'm assuming you always had to start from scratch in a way, no?
It's true, and I think this is the most frustrating part. It's at least for me, and mostly career-wise, because it's been quite difficult, and it's still difficult. And I think only now I fully understand that with age it becomes more and more difficult to reinvent yourself, basically, and to start from scratch. Because it's one thing to start from scratch when you are in your 30s, and a completely different story when you are in your 40s or later. So every time you move and you want to start over, of course, you have a CV, which you more or less you fill in with some activities, but it's inevitably that it has some gaps at some point, and it's becoming more and more difficult to explain that to a possible employer, and I fully understand this now. Maybe I wasn't aware fully at the beginning. I was maybe more optimistic, but I would say that my nature also helped me, because I'm a quite friendly person. I relate easily to people. I like people, and I like to find stories from different cultures and from different people. I like to listen to others. So this was completely in my advantage, and it helped me make friends everywhere. So this was not a problem. Although I think this kind of life, and especially for diplomats, I think it's and the spouses of diplomats, is quite a lonely life. And not many people realize that, because it's this cliche which goes on and on and on, and it's a never-ending story. And I see it sadly still on TV and some TV series who are like projecting this image like of everlasting fairy tale and parties and joie de vivre et la vie est belle. But it's certainly more behind that, and this was the reason why I wrote the book a few years ago to shed some light to the real life. I mean, it's the book was and is a memoir based on my own experience, but it can easily relate to others. And I had feedback over the years that yes, it does. I mean, a lot of expats who read it said that they went through the same thing. So it's not easy. But I also think that in time you learn to adjust more easily, maybe to become more resilient, to lower your expectations also at some point. And at the same time, I think that every country comes with their own challenges, surprises, also wonderful experiences, people that you meet. So you have to go with an open heart and to be ready to fully embrace the experience.
Would you have some tips maybe taken from your book or from your own personal experiences on how you tackle some of these challenges? You said, for you it was easy, to make friends and so forth, but are there any other tips that you can suggest for anyone who's listening and maybe, doing the same thing that you have done?
I'd say for me, it helped later because I haven't done it from the beginning, but I think it helps to prepare a bit before you move somewhere, to, if possible, learn the language or at least read a bit about the culture, the local culture, the expectations, the sensitivities, because it's also a subject that you have to be aware of. And if you go a little bit prepared, it will be easier to integrate. And then from my own experience, what I did and helped me a lot, it was I tried to get involved with a lot of things. Like I volunteered a lot. I joined different groups that interest me to meet people. I mean, maybe at the beginning, for at least let's say the first 6 months, I rarely rejected any invitations that I got for an event or something. So I joined everything. And okay, afterwards I decided, is it for me or not? Am I interested in it? The circle of people, is it the right one for me? But if you have prejudices from the beginning, it's only detrimental to you. So it really helps to, as I say, to have an open mind and open heart too. Yeah. You never know what to expect. So the more people you meet, the more chances you have that you will meet the right people for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I do like what you just said about, being participant to all the different things. I think, saying yes to a lot of these things just, I would say, open your mind, but also gives you the chance to meet other people like you, maybe to get to know a little bit about the place, the culture. Like it's an easy way to adjust in a fun way, let's say, right? You're not like, I think like if you're moving somewhere and then you're like not integrating yourself, you're just staying at home, it does not help, right?
Yeah, it's as I say, it's different from country to country. And what works well in one place, it might not work well for you in the next one, or your expectation, because you also change in time, and you evolve, and I think in a good way, honestly. And also, I found that from some point on, it was quite difficult, and it is quite difficult to relate also to many people back home who used to be my friend, because we grew apart, we have different interests, we have different views now. So at some point you realize, okay, it doesn't matter if you knew them for 20, 30 years, they are not the same person that people that they were before, and you are not the same one. So the compatibility is not the same. So you have to accept it and to be prepared, because sometimes it's rough, and it can be disappointing, but that's reality. So you have to face it too, and to be prepared to, it will happen eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I think with time we all change, and then you start to see there is less of a compatibility, definitely. And is there a particular country that you like the most, since you have moved around so much, or not, if you have to choose?
It's a question that everybody asks, and honestly, if I at the first glance, when somebody asks me, I would say, yeah, Vienna is definitely in my heart forever. But I think one of the reasons is that one of my children was born there, so it's also like on a sentimental level more than the others. But I adore Berlin. I wasn't very fond of it most of the time when we were there. I have to admit that, especially the first few years were very rough. And we also lived there through the pandemic, so it was also additional burden. But now I really miss it. And every chance we get, we go back to visit our friends there, to go around the city. So Berlin is a wonderful city, and it's very big and it's very diverse. So it has something for everyone. So I strongly recommend everyone to visit it at some point. But on the other hand, when we moved here in Brussels, at the beginning I was like longing for, it was the weather was better in Berlin, and I had more friends, and someone who's more experienced than me, a friend of mine here, she told me that, it's natural because it's the diplomatic syndrome, she called it. I'm not sure if it's a true thing, but she said that it's common for all diplomats. You're always longing for the last posting that you had. So
yeah, that's so funny. And what about this whole thing about, when you move, you have to speak different languages. How was it with that? Which was there a particular language that you had to learn, or was it just no matter where you're going, it was always English?
I would say these days it becomes easier and easier with English, because more or less everyone speaks English everywhere. So I think this is an advantage, but it can be also a disadvantage, because at some point it's not a very strong incentive to learn the local language anymore, because you know that you will get by with English quite well. But when we moved to Vienna, so it was quite some years ago, I knew nothing about German. I didn't speak any words, so I started completely from scratch. And at the beginning it was fine. I also was in hospital and I spoke English with everybody, doctors, nurses, everybody was very nice to me, and they all spoke English with me. But at some point you realize that if you really want to blend in, and if you really want to understand the local culture, you have to speak the language. German is not the easiest language on earth, so I'm still struggling to tell you the truth. So I'm not completely fluent. I mean, I am fluent, but I do a lot of grammar mistakes, which my kids remind me all the time. But I speak the language now, but it's been quite a few years that we lived in the German world. So. But I think it helps. So it's one thing when you approach someone directly in English, okay, they treat you instantly like a tourist, okay, maybe they give you some direction, something, but especially with your neighbors, or they will certainly appreciate more if you try to speak their language. And here in Brussels, I think it's really nice that people really, really appreciate if you try to speak their language, either it's French or Flemish. I speak French. I learned it in school, so I speak it quite well. They are really appreciating it, and you see this on their faces when the minute that you start talking, they really appreciate your struggle, and then try to help, and they try to maybe guide you if you don't find your right words, but it's nice.
Yeah, that's the thing about languages. like English is the international language. Everyone speaks it or is supposed to be speaking it. And if you know English, it's easy for you to go around, to travel, to move somewhere and to settle down. But like you said, I feel like when you do not know the local language, you're seen differently. And I feel like people appreciate it a bit more if you make an effort to learn the local language and they see you with different eyes. Like you're no longer a tourist, you are actually a local like them. So it changes. I feel like it changes the perception. And again, I think it depends on the countries. And I feel like some countries are very used to having more, expats and so forth. So it's okay if you do not know the local language, but I think for other places, maybe they will appreciate it a bit more if you knew the local language, I would say.
It's like it is here, basically. Brussels is full of expats, and I think a large proportion of the people who actually live in Brussels are not they're not locals. So everybody speaks English, but the minute that you try and make an effort to speak in French, you can see that they certainly appreciate the effort, which is very rewarding and encouraging for you, and encourages you to speak more. I think English is the common language nowadays for everyone, but it's not like you can express yourself in a language, but I read somewhere a few years ago that depending on what language you speak, you actually change your personality. So if you really look at someone speaking different languages, you will see that suddenly they switch the tone, maybe, or they switch the cadence of the speaking. So it's a different person, basically, in different languages. And I strongly believe it. And I see it also with my children. So when they speak German or they speak Romanian or English, so I see the difference. So it's quite interesting to study it. And I was always fascinated about it. I studied management, but at some point I had this subject which was called compared management. And it was basically comparing different styles of management around the world. And it seemed to me really fascinating. I really liked that. And I thought, okay, at one point, maybe I will study more about it. I didn't have time back then, but I studied later intercultural communication and cultural diplomacy, which are quite related to the subject. And I think it's a fascinating world once you realize that each culture comes with their own sensibilities and with their own perception about the world, and how you can find common ground to speak. It doesn't matter, because sometimes we speak the same language and we still don't understand each other. So it's not only about the language itself. You have to go beyond that.
Yeah. I also know about this whole thing about how personality changes based on the language that you speak. But I never dig deeper to understand a little bit more about it. So, because I also speak many languages, but I do not know if my personality changes. Maybe yes. I feel like there's a different side of me that comes out depending on the language that I speak. I feel like when I'm speaking English, I'm a bit more professional, much calmer compared to when I'm speaking in Italian. So I don't know. It's something that I have to think about.
So maybe it's also, as you say, depending on where you use the language. If, for example, English you use predominantly in your job, for your work, you will use a more professional tone. And so it depends how you use it. Or if you use it in your daily life, and if you use it at home with your children, with your husband, it's different.
Yeah. So I do have a few more questions before we conclude the interview. I do want to ask you if you ever went back to Romania, and also what is your home? Like, is it a location? Is it friends? Is it a feeling? It's a question that I typically ask many people because I'm always curious to know, especially from people that have moved around so many times. I think our definition of home changes. It's always evolving. So I want to know a little bit about your definition of home, and if you have gone back to your country where you were born.
We go there regularly, and we lived on and off for a few years. So we weren't always abroad. So we were back home, and then we moved again. So we have never lost touch with our country. But I would say maybe it sounds a bit of a cliche, but I think it's true. So home is where your family is. So because of that, it's not like where I have a house or where I grew up, or no. I mean, to me, it's where my husband and my children are. And if we are together, it's fine. I mean, I can be anywhere, I think, on Earth. Of course, I guess it becomes more complicated when the kids grow up and maybe they move to different places. So this is another question then. Where is your home then? But for now, I don't have to think about it. So I would say as long as we are together, it's fine. I can adapt anywhere, and I can because nowadays it's also the technology helps a lot, and it's you can talk to your parents and you can see them and you can have this conversation. So it's not like 30 years ago. You can have your favorite food from home easily. So it's not like you really miss something that you are longing for and you cannot have access to. So it's becoming easier and easier to move abroad and to feel comfortable and not to miss much the places that you grew up with. But of course, I mean, you have everybody has nostalgia about some places or about some special sense from the childhood, or we all do that. And every time we go back home, we feel immediately like we belong there. We are comfortable with the grounds, with the people. But for me, as I say, I can adapt everywhere as long as I'm with my family.
I love it. I love it. So we are approaching the end of the episode, and I usually ask the same question, which is, what is the message that you want to leave today to the audience?
I would say that in today's world where it seems like, you can watch you can just push a button and watch on YouTube videos of people traveling in the other corner of the world, and you can basically see how it looks like in any corner. And you may have the impression that you know a lot about the world. But my advice would be to everyone, go travel. This is the only investment that you will never regret, I guarantee. And it's not something that it will be broken or it will be lost. It will stay with you for the rest of your life. So as long as you have possibilities, go abroad as far as you can, as long as you can, and enjoy other cultures, see other people, learn from other experiences, and enrich yourself, because in the end, this is almost all that counts.
Love it. Well, thank you, Alexandra. And for sure, I will take your advice, take your advice and travel more. I love traveling. So for anyone listening, make sure to travel more. Before we let you go, do you want to tell us how people can connect with you?
I'm quite active on Instagram. This is my main social media account. I also have an X account. So if people want to reach out to me, they can easily do it there. So I love to connect with other people and exchange ideas, and I usually post a lot about our travels. We like to travel a lot, so as long whenever it's possible and we can, we travel. And I like to photography too, so I take a lot of pictures that I post. I also write for a magazine, Europe Diplomatic it's called. So if you want to read something interesting and up to date, you can also follow that. So.
Lovely. Lovely. I will put all the information in the description. And Alexandra, once again for coming, and for all of you, thanks for listening to this episode of Stories Beyond Borders. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, home isn't always a place, sometimes it's a story. Until next time, keep crossing borders and telling your story.